everyone, I'm Joe from Scarecrow Joe's Studio. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe. This is going to be a multi-segment tutorial on building a Stanger Things Season 5 Vecna 3D wall sculpture made out of paper mache. And in this first segment, I'm going to show you how to build the armature using simple materials. So we have a lot of work to do. Let's get started. The armature for this, I'm going to keep it really simple. First of all, I'm using a 12-inch piece of round wood. I got a bunch of these pretty cheap off of Amazon. The only problem is they're really thin. This is actually 2 of them glued together. So just to give you an idea how thin they are, but this is good enough. For the head of Vecna, I'm using a Styrofoam mannequin head. You can get these in craft stores, you can get them online. They sell male versions and female versions. Get a male version. It'll be better for the Vecna sculpt. On the back of this here, I have taken out, I think this is about a 45 degree angle, a chunk of the styrofoam on the neck area. I took that out, so now it looks like this. It's not perfect, doesn't have to be. Here's the idea. I'm going to take the mannequin head and I'm going to mount it at that angle so that when I actually finish this piece hanging on the wall, I want to hang it up high enough so that Vecna is sort of looking down at people. Okay, so mounting it at an angle, and I did leave, I left some room up here, like a little shelf area, I guess, so that when I attach it, when I glue it, that shelf area will just hang over it just like that. Once I get it glued in place, I'll go in and I'll trim up just a little of that so it's kind of flush to this piece of board. All right, I have that glued into place with a lot of hot glue right around the edges here, all the way around in the bottom. So that's going to help it to stay put while I'm working on things. The next step is I need to remove some of the styrofoam. I want to gouge out some of the styrofoam from the eye sockets. And then I'm going to remove this nose completely. If you look at reference photos of Vecna, he doesn't have a nose. It's more like of a skull type of a nose. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to leave the ears on there. I don't need to really do anything with those because those are going to be covered over and they're not very prominent on this foam head anyway. And I'm going to leave the mouth as is as well. So the first thing that I want to do is, just so I could see it better, I'm just taking a marker and I'm marking around where I want to gouge out and remove styrofoam. Some of the tools that I'm going to be using to remove the styrofoam from the areas that I have marked out, these are wood carving tools that I have. I don't do any wood carving. I use these for 3D pumpkin carving, and maybe in the future, this fall, I'll do a video on 3D pumpkin carving. But these work really good for a lot of other things. This one here has the blades that are shaped and they're kind of angled, so that'll allow me to get in at an angle and press in really easy and remove that stuff. So some of you probably have styrofoam cutters that might work on that. That's great. I don't have a styrofoam cutter. So this is what I'm going to use. Here's how it looks now. Completely removed that nose, gouged out the eyes here. I went down, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little over 1/4 of an inch for the eye sockets, just to give me enough room. So when I get to that point to insert my eyeballs in there, which I will be making, I'll have plenty of room in there to do so. Next step, moving on, is the body area. So I'm going to build up shoulders and then the chest. The materials that I'm going to be using for that is aluminum foil and masking tape. So I'm going to go ahead off camera and just pre-cut some aluminum foil, pieces of aluminum foil that I'll use. I don't think that you need to watch me do that, and besides that, it's the sound of aluminum foil crinkling and being cut is very annoying. I have a bunch of sheets of aluminum foil pre-cut, and what I'm going to do is just have you watch, but before I start moving and working here, I'm going to explain the process beforehand. The shoulders areas and the chest, especially the chest area, I want to bulk that out so that it meets the neck, so I don't have this big gap between the chest, the shoulders, and the neck. So it needs to be that thick, and then I'm going to taper it down a little towards the bottom. So because this aluminum foil is very, very annoying to hear and crinkled up, I'm going to silence that and just have you guys watch what I'm doing. Have those covered up with the masking tape, especially on the backs where I'm intending on hot gluing them down. I did create another little piece to go right underneath the neck area to kind of bulk that area up. So before I move on any further, I want to glue these pieces in place, and then I will know where I need to proceed in bulking up in the other areas on this. There's going to be so much material on here as far as clay and different things to create the sculpture itself. So I'm just getting the rough shape of where I want to apply the clay and bulking it out so that I don't need to use as much clay. So that's the idea in this process. If you have a better idea or a different method that you think will work better, go ahead and use that method. I encourage you to do so. I also encourage you to share that information with me. Drop that down in the comment section of this video. I am open to suggestions. I'd love for you to share your information with me as I'm sharing my information with you. So I'm going to get this glued in place, then I'm going to go ahead, bulk up the other areas, fill in some of these gaps. Okay, I added some more balls of aluminum foil in different shapes to this. So rough armature to make this more three-dimensional. Next step is strip macheing with newspaper strips dipped in paste. So I'm going to strip mache the chest area, probably 3 layers. I'm also going to strip mache the foam head, only 1 layer. The only reason I'm strip macheing the foam head is because I have found in the past that applying paper mache clay directly to styrofoam in the drying process tends to crack. And I have found that if I put a layer of strip mache on there, let it dry, and then apply my clay, I don't have any issues. All right, completely covered in a layer or two of the strip mache, and I made sure I got inside the eye sockets and the cut opening that I created for the nose cavity. This needs to go in front of a fan to dry, and this will probably, because there's not a whole lot of layers on here, in front of a fan, this will be dry within like 12 hours. And then after it's dry, I can get to start laying on some clay and bulking this thing up for sculpting. All right, this was allowed to dry in front of a fan for about 12 hours. And it took less than that, actually, for this just small amount, a couple of layers of strip mache to dry. So we're at the point now where we're ready to start laying on some clay. I'm going to primarily focus on getting the body section of this sculpture bulked out and ready to apply some other things on it. So I'll get going on that and give you a closer look at this armature. Here's a little bit more of a closer look at the armature. So although I did bulk this up with some aluminum foil masking tape, it's still not where it needs to be. But that's perfectly fine, because I'm going to go ahead and fill all of this in and bulk it up even more. And in specific areas, such as the shoulders and the chest area, with some of the Scarecrow Joe Studio clay. I will be using some other clays in this tutorial as well, a combination of other paper mache clays and some air dry clay, but we'll get into that as we progress on the sculpt. Now, if you don't happen to have a small tabletop easel, please don't go out and buy one just for this. The only reason that I have it on here while I'm going to sculpt is so that it's easier for me to show you the process. Otherwise, I pretty much normally would be sculpting it laying down, but then you wouldn't be able to see the process as well. So just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and move forward and start laying on some clay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start in the shoulder area here. My focus right off the bat is to just get a layer of clay on this whole thing. I'm not really going to focus too much right now on the face or the head, although I will be layering on a thin layer of clay onto the head as well. But in this section of this tutorial, my main focus is getting clay on the body. So at first, it's just going to be applying a thin layer of clay, 1/4 of an inch, and then I will see what that looks like and where I need to bulk up in areas where it's going to need to have more of a thickness so that I can apply some other elements into this sculpt. It's a really good idea, if you are following along, to have some reference photos of this character so that you could go back as, you know, we're sculpting and refer to those, have those on hand. So I'm going to just continue on here, lay on some clay on the whole body section. Per usual, after laying on that 1/4 inch of clay, I'm going to go in with some paste and a paintbrush and apply that, and with a little bit of pressure to help smooth out that clay that's on there. And now I'm just going in with the back of a plastic spoon, again as usual, and just smoothing out that clay even more. Okay, let's take a look at this again. Because this was just hot glued on here, the armature, I made sure that on the edges, all around where it connects to the board, that I did apply some clay, that it is connected from the armature and onto that board. And once that dries, it will adhere permanently to that board. But turning it, and make sure as you're sculpting and you're creating that you are turning your piece, you're looking at it from all angles, is giving, by doing this and looking at what's going on here, it's giving me visual points on where I need to bulk up even more. And again, I'm referring to a reference photo of Vecna that I have that primarily focuses from his torso, upper torso, and up to his head. So I'm just going to start taking some clay and really just bulking. I'm going to bring this chest out, because as you can see down below here, it's thicker than up here. So I need to even that out, make that a little, I want to at least match the depth in the clay. But keep in mind that I am going off of the season 5 version of Vecna. So in the season 5 version, he has a lot more intricate sculpt as far as those viney, sinewy things. And in the shoulders here, he has those spikes that come out, so we will be creating those as well. But right now my main focus is just bulking up everything. I want to bring out the shoulders a little bit more so that I have more surface area to insert those spikes that he has. Okay, this is how or where in the areas I have bulked up a little bit more. Just give you a look at that real quick. It's definitely going to need more clay up here in these areas. But here's the thing, I don't want to bulk this out so much with just the base amount of clay, because as I've mentioned, there's going to be a lot more going on here. He has those fleshy vine things all over him. And when applying those, that's going to bring this out even more. So I need to be cautious and not bulking it out so much. But I do feel that I do need to bulk up more around in these areas up here. Not so much down here. I think this is fine. But these areas like right up here, just a little bit, maybe another 1/2 inch of clay. So there is quite a bit of clay on here. You're going to need quite a bit of clay. You can, of course, as you're building the armature, build up more of those areas with your aluminum foil so that you're not putting on so much clay. So you can certainly build it up that way as well. But I'm going to go ahead again, smooth all this out, then see where I'm at and where I need to put on just a little bit more clay. Off camera, I went ahead and I applied a very thin layer of my paper mache clay to the head. The only thing that I did not apply paper mache clay to is the inside of the eye sockets, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I did also put a thin layer, and I'm talking thin, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So I did put a thin layer inside the nasal cavity as well. I did not do the very back of the head, only because it's leaning up against this. And this needs to dry, and then I'll work on that after it's dry. I also did not do any more bulking with the clay on the torso quite yet. Reason for that is because, and let me show you, hopefully you guys could see that, my reference photo here of Vecna. So he has, on his shoulder areas, he has these vines that come out, and then there's these protrusions. They're very pointy. And he also has them in some of the areas on his body as well. So I need to create those before I move on with the rest of the sculpt, because I want to be able to incorporate those pieces into wet clay. So for that, I'm going to be using some DAS air dry clay. I'm going to start off by just taking a chunk and forming a couple of the larger spikes for his shoulders. I also have on hand some Sculpey original polymer clay. So it's not the expensive like Super Sculpey or anything like that. It's just the Sculpey original. So if this doesn't pan out, if I don't like the way this comes out looking when these spikes are dry, then I could always go in and use some of my Sculpey polymer clay and form them. I do have a thin silicone mat. I just want to form some of the bigger horns. I'm calling them horns for lack of a better description on them or for them. So I'm just sort of, for the larger ones, just forming them into a point. These are probably going to take some amount of time to dry, maybe 48 hours or so, we'll see. I'm going to leave enough room, about, I don't know, I'm going to say at least a ½ an inch from the base to insert these when they are dry into the wet clay. So this might be a little too big. I think I'm going to remove just that amount right there. And so really about like right around in there where my fingernail mark is, that's the depth of where I will insert this into my wet clay. So there's one. And honestly, I'm just going to go ahead and make a few of these, and I'm also going to make some small ones for my little tiny spikes. So I'm taking a little bit of the air dry clay. Nothing really technical about this at all. Just kind of forming them into a point So this point here will be protruding out of my wet paper mache clay. Again, once these are dry and hardened. So off camera, that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep carrying on here, and I'm going to make these little spikes. Okay, I formed a bunch of these out in the DAS air dry clay. I'm going to give them about 48 hours or so. Should be dry, should be cured and hardened by then. I don't know. It stays a constant, pretty much 70 degrees during the winter time in my studio, so it should be okay. But after 24 hours, I'll come in and I'll flip them over on this silicone mat that they're drying on, just to make sure that they're going to get enough airflow all the way around them. I didn't really make a whole lot of the very small ones. I just don't know if they're going to be very brittle or not. If that is the case and I don't like the way that they look, again, I have my standby Sculpey original polymer clay that I can form these things out of. But I really wanted to give this a shot because I'm enjoying the air dry clay. Which, by the way, I did an experiment in my last video on air dry clays and incorporating different air dry clays and techniques and things into existing paper mache clay. So check that out. In addition to these spikes here, I also made a couple of spheres that may serve as my eyeballs if my idea that I have for the actual eyeballs does not pan out, but we'll get to that one in the next segment. In the next segment coming up very, very quickly, we're going to continue on the sculpt, really concentrate on building up some of these areas and putting in a lot of details using paper mache clay and air dry clay. But that is a wrap on this first segment on building the armature and getting some clay laid on there. Looking forward to completing this project. I think it's going to be really, really cool when it's all done, and I'm very, very excited about it. I hope you are too. I've been wanting to make this character for a very long time, since season 4 came out from Stranger Things. I am kind of glad that I waited until the season 5 version, because I think it's a lot more interesting than the season 4 version of Vecna. But anyway, this is a wrap on the first segment, and as always, I thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.